Hey, it's been a minute. So, if you're new to my channel, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Nicholas Vassos. I've been a full-time university student for a few years now. I'm a freelance videographer, and most recently, I've become a game developer. That's right, today I'm talking about the one and only game I made. It's called The Circle 1964. It's a game I made for my high school, easily the most profound thing I had done in those 4 years. And really, it's a game that transcended the COVID-19 inflicted barriers of both space and community in quite the engaging way, if you ask me. So before giving you some much needed context and actually walking through the game itself, spoilers and all, I first am going to show you the game's trailer. Take a look.
Our world is imperfect now. Dropped in like a pin on the map. We must team up to regain what has been lost. A series of challenges will lead you to the ultimate prize. Who am I? Well,
So, a bit of background about the high school I graduated from. It's an all-boys independent school out in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. There's only a couple hundred kids in the high school. It's quite small, not to mention the campus is even smaller. At the heart of it all lies a chapel. It's an Anglican school, so choral traditions and religious traditions are kind of woven into the culture. As well, given the small size, there's a huge emphasis in the school on community, something that heavily contributes to the school's very strong alumni connection. So, as hinted at throughout that trailer, the game sees players manipulating archival elements to uncover the narrative behind a secret underground network of alumni known only to the player as the Circle 1964. To keep up with this narrative, videos and puzzles are delivered to the player directly via actual alumni of the school that we cloaked in darkness and pitched their voices down and all that. In addition to that, both us, the developers, and the people playing the game remained anonymous throughout, and this is for two reasons. Mostly one, to feed into the mythos of the game, but also two, to strengthen a game mechanic that I'll discuss later. In terms of the game's structure, it takes elements from a variety of different sources, including flash games, escape rooms, and alternate reality games, the latter of which sees players going deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole in this sort of twisted scavenger hunt, I guess you could say. As for the rollout of the game and its structure, this was entirely online, delivered remotely throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and then one May weekday at midnight we had sent out an anonymous email to the students and teachers of the high school. It gave them an introductory video, there was a survey to sign up into teams, and then it also kind of warned them of the challenges ahead. Now, students and parents were rightfully concerned as they were kind of processing all of this information, which bought us, the game developers, just enough time to both sort the players into teams and make the game's 3 levels. The interesting thing about this game was that the only planning done here was that we knew we wanted to make a game. That's right, this fully fleshed out experience comprised of 3 levels was made entirely as it was played. I'd say from conception to creation to even playing the game, the entire experience only existed for about a month. It was insane. ARGs of its kind take months, if not years, to plan out. Let me say it again, we did this in a month. I in no way encourage to do what we did if you're an aspiring game developer. Our social lives and sleep schedules suffered greatly because of it. That being said, the constraint of time did bring out a lot of really creative ideas that in a pre-COVID world we probably wouldn't have been able to come up with. That's another thing that should be noted. We had the idea for a game before the pandemic had even struck, though it would have existed in a very different way than it did in the final product. It's an understatement to say the COVID-19 pandemic took a toll mentally and physically on the students, so really this game more than anything aims to reconnect students with both their school and their community without being there physically. And that's where the idea of archival elements kind of came into play. Tools like Google Maps and Google Earth aim to reconnect students with their school physically, while stuff like the online yearbook archives for our school aimed to reconnect students with the school's history and community, something that they might not have known a lot about or even cared about for that matter. And that's another thing I should say, all of these tools are free, except for the Wix website we bought. Everything else was free. Don't let that set you back. Literally everything is free. You just need to have a good idea. That's it. Regardless, at the end of the day, students just wanted an in-school experience, so much so that this put immense pressure on us, the game developers, to make an experience that was worthwhile. I will now introduce the team that made the game. First off, there's me, Nicholas Vassos, class of 2020. I was one half of the game's conception. My work largely revolved around video and puzzle creation, real-time communication with the players, and the curation of an archival Instagram account, which I'll talk about at the very end. Next is Isaac Tamblin, class of 2021. Isaac is a wizard with graphic design. He in part gave the game its visual style, so we would give him puzzles to create and then he would make all the graphics and visuals for them. He also crafted the game's logo, this Ouroboros with the surveillance eye. I think it's a really neat image. He also worked on the Circle 1964 website. It's now taken down, but the website housed a timer that counted down to the game's end, as well as the various gates that players needed to pass through throughout the game. Next up, we've got Lee Williams, class of 2021 as well. Lee was brought in as sort of the guy behind the scenes, the guy in the chair. A lot of his work was unnoticed by the player, but really it helped out a lot. First of all, he categorized all the different teams into their own easy-to-access email groups so we can reach out to all of them at once. As well, he maintained the game's leaderboard on the website, and yes, this is a competition. Players were in teams, there was a prize at stake, so it was pretty intense, to say the least. Finally, the man behind games in the classroom in general, Dr. Paul Darvazi. He's the best. He is the other half of the game's conception. Aside from working on puzzles with me, he was the team's leader, he coordinated all of our calls, he had the idea for a game in the first place, and as well, he reached out to all of the different alumni to be a part of the game. While he does have ample experience making games in classrooms, this was definitely a new challenge he was up for. Alright, so that's a good amount of context for now. I say we just dive right into it, and let's watch the first ever video that was sent to players in that first anonymous email.
Greetings, Georgian. You can call me Pierce. Like you, I once walked the halls of the college, ate my meals in Ketchum, and occasionally nodded off during evensong. My fondest memories are from my time at school, and now is the time to give back. I belong to a dedicated circle of former students who now look from afar, but we are always near. We are few in number, but wide in reach, and our uncertain membership is concealed in plain sight. For instance, I mentioned that you can call me Pierce, but I must also disclose that Pierce is not my real name, and this person you are watching, the one who is veiled in shadows in speaking these words, is not really me. With no regard for resemblance, I recruited an actor to play me in this video. He was supplied with a script and a few instructions. There are other videos like this one, and other actors, but let me get to the point. The current situation leaves much to be desired. The school has been rendered inaccessible, and many of you likely feel confined. The circle has convened and made the decision to surface in order to remedy the situation, with a unique experience that might just help you reclaim some of what has been lost. Rewards await those of you who venture forth. And always remember, this fact.
So this is really the first thing the players saw before the game had begun. One interesting thing is that the man in the video is the only person to be in the game that is not actually an alumni of the school. He was a red herring of sorts, kind of like the character's name of Pierce. The name Pierce was inspired by Pierce in Verarity, a character from the book called The Crying of Lot 49. Now, before the game had even begun, a mystery had emerged. Who was behind all this? Now, this brings up an important game mechanic I mentioned before about the obstruction of identity. Essentially, if a player figured out the identities of everyone on a different team, those people would lose points and the player who guessed right would gain points. And because of this, word of mouth and espionage and backstabbing and speculation had just gone crazy before the game's levels had even dropped. So I think now's a better time than ever to talk about the game's different levels, or trials as we called them. There were 3 trials that dropped throughout the game. Each trial consisted of about 3 or 4 password protected puzzles, which led to a gate on the website. Teams got points based on how fast they entered through that gate, and as soon as they were done, they kind of waited for the next trials to drop, That's not to say nothing happened there. There were some side quests and extra things thrown in there just to keep them occupied. See, I could talk about this game for hours. It's too easy for me. I think it's best for you guys, though, that we just begin playing the game. You'll get the hang of it soon enough. Let's do that. Okay, so you're still with me here, which I can tell is a good sign. One thing I'll say before we start is that this is like the 4th time I've tried recording this video, and that's because I really don't know what I'm doing here. The way the circle was played in real time is so different to how I'm going to show this to you that I had to make a lot of changes and compromises in terms of this video's format. So what I've settled on I think is going to work out pretty well. It's kind of a presentation style format that goes over each puzzle in the game as well as its answer, so spoiler warning. Even if you wanted to play through this game though, I don't think you can because the online archives where all of the puzzles are solved is now inaccessible to the public. You'd have to contact the archivist somehow and they'd have to give you a special link to it. I don't think it's worth it for this, if I'm being honest. So yeah, I've made some compromises here. There's a few things you're not going to see, like a lot of the website stuff, a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, and the email communication. I don't think that's very relevant to this. So I say we just dive right into it. This is the Trial of Eyes, the first ever set of puzzles that the players got access to. You're going to see the puzzles are kind of easy, and that's because it's more of an introduction than anything. We needed to really show the players here how to use the online archives as well as Google Maps because they're going to become reoccurring elements throughout the game. So it might be a little easy, bear with me here on this one. But yeah, right here what you're looking at is a hyperlinked PDF that has all the different stuff in it for the trial. So you start with the opening video, then the 4 puzzles, and then the gate on the website. When players enter in that gate on the website, they're done the trial, it marks their timestamp so we know what order the players came in, and then they just kind of wait until the next one comes out. No more dancing around it, let's begin right now. This is the opening video to the Trial of Eyes. Take a look.
Greetings, Georgian. You can call me Pierce. Welcome to the Trial of the Eyes. In the Trial of the Eyes, you will learn to see across space and time. If you succeed, you will ascend to the first gate. Those who arrive early will be most highly rewarded. I wish you luck with your advancement, and always remember that
Hopefully you enjoyed that video as much as I did. I think it's pretty cool. But yeah, let's dive into the first set of puzzles. It is a folder containing 2 different photos in it. So the first photo reads Numerology. The 8th track shares its title with the album. In the song, the hidden world is seen by what? Its numerical position will grant you entrance into the next folder. So we're looking for some sort of number, numerical position. We don't really know what that album is yet though, so we can't do that yet. Let's go to the other photo in this folder, and it says, Learn to see across time. To see across time, we turn to the archives. The archives are buried, but we will take you there. From the RSGC website, discover our history and campus, and scroll down until you encounter this red button, Online Archives. So that button doesn't exist anymore, so you actually can't play this game. It's crazy. Enter the archives and look for the option below, Browse Collections/Names, and then it says Choose the Names option, and then select the first name listed alphabetically, then choose the Only Image. The Boy Holding the Blue Book released an album in 2006. Its name unlocks further instructions. Okay, so that's the album we're looking for. We also see here the Circle 1964 logo in addition to this album cover. I can only assume it is. It's this cool Medusa imagery. It kind of fits in with the whole vibe, so I like it. It's cool. But yeah, I can't show you the process of going into the archives and finding this student, but what I will say is the student's name is Damian Abraham. He went to our high school. He's now in a punk band called F***ed Up. Yeah, it's a very explicit name. I didn't come up with it. Don't ask me about it. So we know who to find. It's Damian Abraham. Now we go back to our first photo here and it says Numerology. The 8th track shares its title with the album, so we go to the 8th track, which is also called Hidden World. In the song, you check out the lyrics. The hidden world is seen by what? It's seen by the third eye. Third would be that numerical position, and that grants you access to the next folder. Seems pretty simple, right? That's because it is pretty easy, but we're trying to just introduce the player to these concepts. Let's move on to the next set of puzzles, which again is a folder with 2 different photos. The first photo here says A Lesson of the Eye, and it seems like there's some sort of crossed out Greek text or some sort of ancient language. You can't copy and paste it into Google, so there's no way to decipher it, I guess. Then under it, it says a what of sawdust, so we're looking for something, some sort of measurement. A what of sawdust, we don't know. So we know what we're looking for. Let's go to the other image in the folder here. It says orientation. Blue circles allow you to enter businesses in Google Street View. We have 3 icons here as well. There's the Google Maps logo, some sort of pope or Christian figure, and then a cow. So that's all we're given. Let's head over to Google Maps. I'm going to share my screen right here. And actually, as you can see right there, There's our answer already searched up here. It is the Burgers Priest on Bloor Street, right outside of the high school. So a lot of the guys would know where that is. If we zoom in really quickly here, we can see that this is the Burgers Priest, and if we drag this guy right here, the blue circle in Street View, look at this. It takes us right into the store, and what else is on the wall but the Greek parable that we didn't know how to translate? How cool is that? So we've got the Greek version here. To the left of it on the wall is the English translation. If we kind of zoom in right here, we can see the what of sawdust is in fact a speck of sawdust. So speck would be the final answer to get you into the next folder. Pretty cool, right? So next up, we've got this folder that only has one image. It appears to be a bunch of gibberish, but at the top it says A equals Z. This is what's called a cipher. It basically jumbles up the English language, and A equals Z means, okay, we just have to flip the alphabet entirely, and that should give us the desired text we're looking for. Ciphers like this are super useful if you're ever making a game. It's super cryptic, it's super fun, and also they're quite easy to decode. There's online tools that let you do that. Turns out if you do some digging online, the A equals Z thing is called an @bash cipher. So if you copy and paste this text into an @bash cipher decoder online, you're given this string of text. Roll a 6-sided die. This will determine who does the Instagram challenge. The photo must be black and white. The photo must have your logo in the bottom left corner. The photo must be of your chosen player's eye, close up. DM the photo to @thecircle1964 and await the next password. Okay, so there's a couple of things to unpack here. The first thing is that this is an Instagram challenge. This is the first of 3 Instagram challenges throughout the game. We did this for 2 reasons mostly. Reason number 1 is that as a game developer, I kind of want to know where my players are at within the game, so we used this as sort of a marker to know where they are. Reason number 2 would be we also wanted to showcase the player's creativity while also feeding into the aforementioned game mechanic of obscuring your identity. So players here are only showing their eyeballs and their team logos essentially, but if you kind of know your friends, you can kind of decipher whose eye is matched up with whose logo, and you can figure out what team they're on. I think it's pretty interesting. This Instagram challenge is quite simple. The other 2 I think are more interesting, but you'll see that as we progress throughout the game. Essentially, they all sent in their photos. I'll flash a couple of these eye photos on the screen so you get the gist of what it's all about. And then when I approved the photo, I had sent them back a new clue, this time saying something along the lines of like, Damien Abraham had many different stage names. One of them is very colorful. What color is that? That'll grant you entrance to the next folder. So if you do some digging on Damien Abraham and his stage names, one of them is Pink Eyes. Yeah, it's pretty fucked up if you ask me. So pink would be the password then to the final clue. Before we go to the final puzzle, I want to say 2 things. One of them is that with the final puzzles, a cool thing I like to do is that I wove in all of the previous answers to make up what was the final puzzle. You'll see it in a second. Another thing I wanted to do was weave in teachers that had previously gone to the school. This not only feeds into the circle narrative, but gives people something to talk about when they're on campus again, you know? So here's the final clue. It says right here, who is the 3rd pink speck? Come on, that's pretty good. I don't know, I'm pretty proud of it. But this puzzle, you're looking for the 3rd guy on the left, you need to know his name. Up at the top, it says prefix 8687, so at this point, instantly your brain should go to, oh, okay, the online archives. So you go to the 8687 yearbook, you look for this specific photo, and then you realize the 3rd pink speck is a guy with the last name Thornbury, who's one of the gym teachers at the school currently. So you throw that into the gate, and then blammo, you're done the first trial. On the gate on the website, it says, quote, you have penetrated the first gate. To ensure the order of your team's arrival, immediately enter your team name into the box below and press submit. So as soon as they put their names in that box and click submit, there's a timestamp on the website, so we as the developers know exactly who came in what position and when they finished. So a couple of other things on this page. One thing is this unfinished QR code in the top right-hand corner. Each new trial adds a piece to this QR code that, when fully completed, takes you to the final video that announces the winners. As well, in the top left-hand corner here, we have some sort of written text. It's like a poem or something, and I just made up a side quest that said, who wrote this poem? If you figure it out and send it to us, then we'll give you some points. Pretty straightforward stuff. But hooray, you're done the first trial. If you want to take a break right now before we get into the second one, by all means do so. Pause the video. I'm still going to be here when you get back. So yeah, let's move on. This is the Trial of Scales, the second trial. It dropped about a week after the first one. Keep in mind, as they're playing the first trial, we're making the second trial. It was that tight. But yeah, nonetheless, let's begin. It says, the Trial of Scales. Welcome to the Trial of Scales. Once you know where to begin, you will be transported on a musical tour across time and space, where you will learn where dragons dwell and knights prevail. You will share a token of your travel to recover those who time has chewed, and when your tour comes to a stop, the second gate can be unlocked. Again, we have another hyperlinked PDF here. It's a good tool if you ever want to make a game like this. Let's start off with the first video here from the Trial of Scales. Take a look.
Greetings, Georgian. You can call me Pierce. We welcome you to the Trial of Scales. Scales pervade every part of our life at the college. Whether the scaled armor of the knight, the rugged scales of the dragon, or the musical scales of the choir that swell in the chapel. As you proceed, the scales will fall from your eyes, revealing the glory of the second gate. You have been resourceful thus far, and always remember, it is
Ooh, that one gives me chills every time. I like that one a lot. So we're gonna share our screen here. Let's go to the first thing. So this is the first set of puzzles that the players encounter. It is a Google Forms survey that says, years to come. Each task will release a word. You would be wise to note all three. The combination of these three words will both set the start position and grant access to the walking tour. May fortune smile upon you. So this is the first puzzle here. We see some sort of grad photo or a class photo, and everybody's blurred out except for this guy in the front. It also says 1992-93, so the players should be thinking, what? Say it with me now. Archives. Right under this as well, there is a yearbook quote of some sort, and it says, as I look back on the year we just had, it is important to blank the things we are likely to be remembered for in the years to come. End quote. So what do the players do? They go to the 1992-93 yearbook, they see this photo, so you find this guy, and then the quote here is his yearbook quote, so you just need to finish it, fill in the blank. It's pretty simple. We intentionally picked this guy because his son was at the school when the game was being played, so we wanted to freak him out a little bit by picking his dad, you know? I think it was a funny, cool thing to do. Gives them something to talk about at dinner. Long story short, though, the answer is recount. So we click submit there, yep, and we get moved on to the next thing here that says reorder. There's a photo of a dragon here, and then every letter in the alphabet has a number next to it here, so you can only assume that that's how many letters appear in a certain word. So there's one A, for example, one E, one I, one M, two S's, and one V. Kind of like the cipher stuff. You could do this by hand, but there are online tools that just do it instantly, so this is a race for time. You want to be fast about it. Regardless, the answer is massive, and we're on to the final puzzle here. So it says conundrum. There's an old painting here. I don't know if it's biblical or not, but it's something cool. Then it says, throughout time I have caused many to stumble. I have defeated emperors and left wise men humble. You see me now, but I am usually heard, and I strike without swords, but only with words. Throughout history, my greatest weapon has been mystery. Your brain, not your body, may break a sweat when you contend with me. What I am is what you need, a clever conundrum this is indeed. So if you want to try and solve it, you can. I'll give you the answer in 3, 2, 1. It's riddle. Yeah, it's one of those meta puzzles, but yeah, the answer is riddle. So now we're done the 3 things, and it says, you have now the 3 words that set the start position and grant access to the walking tour. Once you have inputted the 3 words and determined your start position, return to the Trial of Scales document. May fortune smile upon you. Now use your words. Very quickly, before we go into this link, I just want to highlight one thing here. The may fortune smile upon you line, that comes back quite a bit, and you'll see it a lot throughout the rest of the game. We kept putting that in because throughout the game since the beginning, there was some sort of prize or monetary incentive at the end. We wanted kids to be really interested and invested in this game. As for what that prize is, I won't tell you until the very end, but for now, let's just move on to the geocaching toolbox link here. So let's use our 3 words: recount, massive, riddle. This is another free tool. Before I click enter, I just want to say one thing. Anywhere in the world, you can pick any address in the world, it'll give you 3 words, and that's like its own geocaching code that you can just take anywhere with you. And what are the odds that recount massive riddle takes you right here to the high school? How amazing is that? It could have been any 3 words, and the ones that were right at the high school happen to be recount massive riddle. Like, what are the odds of that? It's so cool. So like when making this puzzle, we found that out and we're like, oh my god, that's amazing. We have to weave that in somehow. And then we worked backwards from it. So we had the 3 words and then we had to figure out what puzzle could lead you to getting that answer. Let's actually go to Google Maps here. We're gonna go to the high school. All right, so the headphones are coming on now. We are doing the walking tour section of this game. So let's take a look at that. Here we go.
Greetings, Georgians. You can call me Pierce. Welcome to our walking tour.
Nice.
Please begin where Recount Massive Riddle deposited you.
So that's like right here.
In your imagination, walk through the West Hall, past all the lockers, classroom doors, camp pictures, and bulletin boards, until you exit to Albany. Once you're outside, access Street View from Google Maps. You may want to pause the tour until you get set up. Don't worry, I'll wait.
We're good. This is where we're supposed to be, so.
When you are ready,
Let's do it.
Start just outside the Albany exit. Turn south and walk past the park and all the way down the street until you hit the Starbucks.
Starbucks, nice.
Now turn right and walk for 2 blocks across the intersection and continue past the long construction site on your left with the pink awning. Walk a block past the construction site and turn left at the large mural of the fire-breathing dragon.
Nice, we're there.
Continue south down the shady tree-lined street and make the first right, where you will walk until you hit the next street.
Oh.
Turn left and walk south past the high school, past the intersection.
Wait,
and
I'm
keep
getting
moving
behind. I'm getting lost.
until you arrive at a small park on your right.
Small park on the right. Okay, wait. Let's pause for a second here. Got ahead of myself. So yeah, we're past the high school. Wait, whoa. I think we keep going. See, I don't even know how to solve my own puzzle here. This is crazy. Did we get lost? We might have gotten lost. Yeah, no, we're definitely in the wrong spot. Let's go back for a second. Yeah, okay, so we passed it. So let's keep going.
The corner, you will find a sign with the park's name on it. Take note. He is a founder of the college.
Healy Willen, founder of the college.
Now turn right and walk until you pass the side of the church and the street ends. Turn right again and position yourself to face the front of the church.
We're here.
You will see a large square plaque between the 2 doors, closer to the door on the left. The 13th letter on the plaque will take you where you need to go. What's that? You can't read the plaque? No problem. Just...
Uh-oh. So that's that. Basically what you're supposed to do, so you know it's Healy Willen. So if you look up Healy Willen plaque on Google, you can just find it, and he said the 13th word is important. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So war. War is the word we're looking for. That is the 13th word. Nice. There's another document in that folder, so let's take a look. It says, Where Dragons Rest. We hope you have learned much on this little stroll, but for us, war is only half of Mr. Willen's role. And despite absorbing Scotch in his antiquity, he was most distant from all places of iniquity. But, to know the nature of his contribution, add war to Where Dragons Rest for the ultimate solution. Okay, so where do dragons rest? It's a bit of a riddle. Let's think about it for a second. There's a bunch of places they could rest, but the answer we're looking for is Den. War plus Den. He was the warden at one point. Seems pretty simple enough. So warden is the answer to get you to the next folder. One thing I will say before the next set of puzzles is that Darvazi and I worked on most of these together, but these next 2 I did myself. They're my babies. I'm super proud of them. So this is all my doing. Let's check it out. Numerology 2. A great sacrifice was made by countless young men to tip the scales of war on what is now known as D-Day. Intrepid troops stormed the beaches of France to slay a ferocious dragon whose fire was felt across the world. Although incomparable to the sacrifice of those young knights, during the 1980s the college used to celebrate Dragon Day, a charitable tradition also affectionately known as D-Day. In the 2000s, Georgians had the good fortune to tour the very sites of that terrible war. You now have all you need to know to unfold this arcane formula. Profit divided by trip year minus battle year times 5 equals your password. The final sum will allow you to proceed. So you're looking for a number here. I know you probably didn't sign up to do math. Believe me, it's not that hard. You just need to go to the 1980 and 2000 yearbooks, and all these numbers are kind of scattered around, so you can just plug in the numbers, and it's pretty easy. So the final answer would be 25, and that grants you access to this document here, which is just an image. That's it. It says 1985-86 right here at the top, so you should be thinking, what? Archives. Then there's a list of names that appear to be military names, and 2 of them are not crossed out. There's Corporal John Stone and then Private Bamforth E. Or Bamforth C, I guess, my bad. John Stone is the one with E. But yeah, those 2 names are not crossed out, so obviously there's some significance there. Also in the bottom left here, hidden away is a bit of a QR code that if you scan it, it takes you to a custom page on the website that reads the following. Conversion. An image can hold many secrets, and sometimes what you actually see may only be the tip of the iceberg. If you rename a .pdf file and change the extension to .txt, you may find hidden clues. As with the metaphorical iceberg, the most important things are often hidden below the surface, all the way at the very bottom. So what does that mean? Essentially, you go back to this original photo, you turn it from a .pdf to a .txt, and when you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it's a bunch of gibberish, but the very bottom has a special piece of text that says something along the lines of like, the circle, you are resourceful, your answer came out in the tail end of the 2000s, Pierce. So we really don't know what that means, but we know at least what we're looking for. We're looking for something that came out in the end of the 2000s. So how do we solve it? Well, we see 1985-86, we go to that yearbook. Turns out this list of names is the character list for the play that they did that year. I thought it was fitting that it was a war play because the previous thing was about D-Day, right? One funny thing to mention is that one of those crossed out characters was played by the current headmaster of the school, so there's just a little cool Easter egg there. But anyway, the 2 names that aren't crossed out are played by 2 guys named Vincenzo Natali and David Hewlett. You might not recognize their names, but maybe you've seen their work. Vincenzo Natali became a film director, and David Hewlett is an actor who acted in a bunch of his films. So if you look these 2 guys up, you'll find that they did a bunch of movies together, and the one that came out in the tail end of the 2000s is this cult classic thriller horror film called Splice. Tail End came out at the end of the 2000s, but Tail End as well because the character has this long flowing tail, just kind of a play on words. So Splice would be the final answer to get you into that next document. How cool is that? I love that puzzle so much. I just love the way it incorporates the yearbooks as well as turning stuff into a text document. I've never seen anything like that before. Again, if you're making a game, super useful tool, also free. You don't need any coding experience or anything like that. You just turn it to a text document and write it at the bottom. That's all you do. That's it. All right, well, let's move on to the next puzzle, which is another Instagram challenge. This time it has a different cipher. So what do we see? We see gibberish again, and then we see some sort of Roman bust, and then the Roman numerals for 13. So if you do some digging, you'll realize this is a Caesar cipher, and it shifts the alphabet over however many steps you like. So in this case, it'd be 13. Let's share my screen again. We'll go to a Caesar cipher decoder. We copy and paste it in, 13 steps over, and decrypt it. Yeah, right here. This is what it says. So it says, assign team members a number. Roll a 6-sided dice. This will determine who does the Instagram challenge. Each player can only do the Instagram challenge once. That's important. The photo must be black and white. The photo must have your logo in the bottom left corner. Again, you must be visible in the photo, but your identity should remain secretive. Your photo must include some prominent visual reference to scale in any of its possible meanings. Written words will not be accepted. The circle will convene and award 5 bonus points to the most creative team. DM the photo to @thecircle1964 and await the next password. Wow. So first of all, they do the same sort of thing as the first Instagram challenge where they do black and white, they obscure their identities, they do their team logo in the bottom corner. This challenge, however, requires a lot more creativity than just taking a photo of your eye. The reference to scale was very broad, we left it very open to interpretation, so there was a lot of cool things. Some guys did musical scales, some did like a weighted scale, some people did like scale as in size, so like one thing in relation to another thing, and also these people didn't need to know how to use Photoshop whatsoever, but they really kind of went for it, and I love the creativity on display here. It's great. So yeah, they sent all that stuff in, and the only thing I sent them back was a picture of a quarter, so quarter would be the final password there to get into the final clue. So they got quarter, they input it into the gumball machine, that's their final sort of clue here, and the clue reads, and I quote, "You have come to the end of this expedition. This task will ask for powers of recognition. One of the 25 spliced faces is not in position. Unscramble his signature for your proposition, but use sound judgment to make a smart omission, and only then will the gate grant you admission." So, That's kind of a tongue twister sort of thing. We see on the left 1980-81, so you're thinking immediately archives. There's this gumball machine with all the faces, a bunch of signatures, and then at the bottom there, that face in the gumball machine is one of the teachers currently at the school, again with that alumni-teacher connection. So how you solve this, you go to the 1980-81 yearbooks, and then you realize once you find this image that one of these 25 faces is gone, it's missing. The kid has a very distinct grin and hairstyle, so you kind of know who he is, but you need to figure out which signature is his as well. You need to figure out his name. So you kind of look through the yearbook to find his like school photo or whatever, and you realize that the kid's name is MC Clark. It's the signature that's in the very bottom left-hand corner. In the text here on the puzzle itself, you see that all of the M's are actually crossed out. So you cross out the M from the signature, so all you're left with is C Clark. Then it says unscramble his signature for your proposition. So you take that to a word unscrambler. Alternatively, you could do it by hand. Then you realize the word C Clark could also give you the word crackle. So crackle is the final answer, and that means you're done the trial of scales. Wow, that was a lot. I hope you enjoyed that as well. You're starting to see it's getting a bit harder as well. It's also inching closer and closer to the school's doors itself. In the third trial, you're going to see we're actually going to enter into the school, because really this game more than anything is an excuse to get people back into the school without being there physically. But before we go to the third trial, I want to highlight one really cool side quest I had put in the game between the second trial and the third one. This side quest quickly became my favorite thing I had made for the game, but that wasn't always the case. When I first came up with the idea for it, I started laughing because I didn't think it would work out, but as soon as I did it, then it became so cool. I'll explain what it is right now. So in instrumental music and like Anglican choir music and all that sort of stuff, it's typically divided into a 4-part harmony, so soprano, alto, tenor, bass. I think that's pretty common knowledge at this point. So what I did was I took a couple seconds snippet from a commonly sung hymn at our school, and I divided it into its 4 different parts. So I took these 4 parts and put them into their own audio files that had like a steady metronome and just a piano note playing that melody. Then I divided the teams into 4 different groups and sent each group one of those 4 parts. So one group got the soprano, one got alto, one got tenor, one got bass. And then I said, do something similar to the Instagram challenge, make it black and white, show me the logo, obscure your identity, and then in time with the metronome and on pitch with the given melody, sing la 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 or whatever and send it back to me. So if you're not already on the same page as me, what I essentially did was make a demonic choir. I got them to record each their own part, and then when I put it together, it actually created a real harmony, and it sounds so funny and awesome. Take a look at this. I love it so much. Like, how cool of an idea is that? That's my favorite thing I made in the entire game, and I think it just really showcases the creativity as well as the dedication your players have. Your players will do anything for points if they're interested in the game. But anyway, let's move on to the third trial, the Trial of Ties. This is the one that wraps everything up. It ties it all together. Haha.
Greetings, Georgian. You can call me Pierce. Welcome to the Trial of the Ties. At its core, life, like a college, harbors impenetrable mystery, and every moment conceals a greater code that can only be encompassed by sacred geometry. From the invisible fields of atoms to the furthest dark star, all is interwoven in the fabric of our shared reality. Memories are the treasuries and guardians of all things, and they connect us to the past and to each other. For this final trial, you will learn of the ties that bind. You're close to the ultimate reward, and your persistence is commendable. You must look below to enter the lofty realm of memory, and always remember,
So I'm going to share my screen for this. Instead of doing the presentation format, I'm just going to keep the screen shared and we're going to go through it. And that's because instead of using Google Maps here, I instead go for Google Earth. The reason why we picked Google Earth is we only realized when making the third trial how much cooler and better Google Earth is for these kinds of puzzles. You can add custom icons onto maps. You can add custom like pages with hyperlinks and videos. It's so much more versatile than Google Maps. It's crazy. Let's go. So infiltrating the inner sanctum. You must now gain access to the inner sanctum. To enter, you must first solve 5 locations in the college's environs. They can be solved in any order. May fortune smile upon you. Okay, so the inner sanctum is just a cool way of saying the school itself. So here's the Google Earth thing. If we kind of look out and zoom out, we see they have custom icons, and this red area here is the inner sanctum. We can't go in there yet, it's locked, but we have 5 puzzles to choose from. We can do them in any order. I'm just gonna do them in the order that it was like presented on this this thing here. So let's go first to Bathurst Station. So we're at Bathurst Station, right by the school, and it says hindsight is 2020, but you need to see 1213 to find out what this person would become. There is a video here, so let's take a look at it. Roll it.
I've made the early slog to Bathurst and Blur each morning, through the easy ones and the hard ones. Little did I know of what I would learn along the way, or the person I would become.
So what you just heard was a student's grad quote. If you go to 1213 in the yearbooks, you can find out who that student is. And if you look up the guy's name on Google, what the person would become is an ophthalmologist, which trying to spell that is a puzzle in and of itself. But nonetheless, we go enter your response here. There's a nice little hyperlinked PDF with all the different puzzles. So we go Bathurst Station. And if we write ophthalmologist, oh, it's wrong. How do I spell ophthalmologist? Ophthalmologist. Ophthalmologist, let's try it. Yeah, there we go. So it gives you 1/5 of a password, so you have to do all 5 of these things and combine the 5 passwords to make one big one. So let's write that down. I'm just gonna close the tab, let's keep going. Next up, we've got fractured memory. So it says, what is concealed beneath this palimpsest? We must roll back time to assemble fractured words and images, and then we're given some sort of like cipher again. It's just a bunch of gibberish. There is this photo of this weird guy. I don't know what that's all about, but it can't be a red herring. It has to be something, right? Anyway, I'm puzzled. Let's take a look at this. Clicking on the I'm puzzled link gives you this jigsaw puzzle of an image, so we're gonna have to like put this whole thing together. Like we could sit here and do this entire jigsaw puzzle, but it would take too long, so I'm just gonna tell you what it is. This is the final image. It's of George's Barbecue, which is like an old chicken place that a lot of the students used to go to. The word George itself, the name, is in a box and there's a key under it, so we need that for some sort of password. Then you go back to this image because you still don't really know what you're doing, and then you figure out after a while that this guy's named Vignier, and there's a thing called a Vignier cipher, so we need to just copy and paste this text into some sort of Vignier cipher decoder. The key right here, the password, would be George, and then if you do automatic decryption, it says right here, there is an alum who works at the college whose name technically means one who hunts poultry. Interesting. That's the final answer. Who would that even be? So you have to kind of go through the Rolodex of alum that are also teachers. You realize after a while that it is Mr. Fowler. That is, you know, Fowler's another word for someone who hunts poultry. So Fowler gets you that second password. Write it down. Let's move on. This one's called Sketchy Lane. It says, as you walk along the laneway, you will find familiar figures. The cyclist name is on the wall, and when you find it, note the color and shape of the object above the first letter of his first name. All right, so we kind of walk through this lane, and it's a bummer that I can't show you this because Google Earth updates every couple of years, so we can't actually see the old version of this. But right here on the, just like, in this alleyway was 2 teachers from our school, and one of them was holding a bike. His first name is Tim. So if you were to go here as well, the graffiti's actually been painted over here. Thankfully, I have a photo of it. It used to say right here, Sketchy Tim, which is just hilarious. Like, what are the odds of that happening? And then above the T in Tim, there is a purple star. So purple star is the answer you're looking for. Let's go to Sketchy Lane here. Purple star. Right, so we've got that section of the password. Keep an eye on it. Let's move on. Then we're heading over to Stanley's Convenience, which is a very popular spot for a lot of the guys. It says, once you remember the address, you stop by Stan's to make a purchase. As you leave, you realize you forgot the first item on your list. Once you recall the purchase, it will sound correct. So we need to remember the address. It is 910 Bathurst. 910 Bathurst. Sure enough, that works, and then we'll be redirected to a new link within a few seconds. Again, another tool for making games like this, password-protected links and stuff. It's all free, super useful. Then we're given a few things. There's a QR code here that if you scan it, all it says is the word checkout. So checkout would be the password to get into this section of it. Checkout. Nice. So we're given a custom little receipt here, and what is it asking for? It's asking for, I believe, the first item on your list. You're trying to figure out what that is, so let's cross-reference it with the other items on the list. There's a bear drink, chief chips, and hell bar. So these names written here are in reference to the different headmasters of the school, and you can see on the prices, those are actually the years that they were there for. So 1978, you could find him. 1988, you can find him. 1996, you can find him. The first item on your list, though, you need to know who was the first headmaster of the school. The guy's last name was Wright. So Wright is the final answer. Wright. Beautiful. Again, mark that down. And then the fifth and final clue here is Phantasm. So there's a video. Let's watch this first. This video is so cool because the spray paint that says error, that was a complete red herring. That we didn't plan for that to happen when Darvazi went to go film it. Turns out somebody just spray painted error on the wall there. How cool is that? You'll see in a future video, error appears in a different spot on the school, which is kind of funny. So that worked out in our favor. Not saying people should spray paint our school, but I think it's just funny that that happened. Then it says, phantasmal traces of our former selves haunt the college's environs. To help you practice the art of elusive identification, we ask that you identify the lad with the backpack. Once you do, tell us the response for the riddle he was once asked. So it takes us to Google Maps on this location, kind of where the walking tour started, and the problem is Google Maps does have previous times, but I don't think we can see the student they're looking for, because it's just updated over the years. Anyway, there used to be a student here. He had bright orangey red hair. He was wearing a prefect tie, and you knew the year from Google Maps. It was like 2012, 2013, maybe a little bit after. So you know that he was a prefect in that year. So you go to that year in the yearbook, you find his grad quote, and the grad quote has an answer to the riddle. There was a riddle like in the quote or something. And I believe the answer is today and tomorrow. Nice. So we've got all 5 passwords here. Wow, sorry about that. My camera just died for some reason, but we're back. Where were we? Oh yeah, the final password. Okay, so let's grab that. So when you actually put the 5 passwords together, it says fortune favors the humble. I thought that was kind of cool. And then we go here to the password. If we type it in, submit. Yes, we're in. Okay, so we're going to be redirected here to a new Google Earth thing. This time we're going into the inner sanctum itself. We're finally entering into the school. This is where the puzzles get really, really, really hard, so keep an eye out for that. The inner sanctum. Play video above. So I guess we'll do that first. Let's take a look.
Greetings, Georgian. You can call me Pierce. You have reached the inner sanctum. The ultimate prize awaits you here. Be consistent in your persistence, and always remember...
Longtime viewers of my videos, you might recognize who that was. That was my brother Louis. I think it was just fun. I wanted to weave him in somehow. And so he's a part of the game. Yeah, there you go. It says here, welcome back to the inner sanctum. Take note, the sanctum is a place of order, thus places must be solved in order. Every place will release a key that must be used in the subsequent place. The final clue unlocks the gate. May fortune smile upon you. I'm gonna refresh the page. I don't know why it's so low res. Late for chapel. It says you check your phone in the hallway as you make your way to the chapel. I don't need to read out this full text conversation. Essentially, you're given a number, and if you convert the numbers to letters like a number pad, it spells out the circle, and then if you add I-964 to it on Instagram instead of 1964, you're given the secret second Instagram account, and this Instagram account features all of the Instagram challenge stuff, plus some extras like that demonic choir puzzle I showed you earlier. I think before this puzzle happened, we had players do an extra Instagram challenge where they photoshopped themselves into a background. One of the students was holding brooms, so the guy on the couch would be holding brooms. That's what the answer we're looking for is. So then let's move on to the next puzzle. It says chapel. How many times is this temple filled with song? How many voices have joined in the chorus? Have faith that a solution is imminent, but first you must choose a suitable song for the service. Before we do that, there is a video here, so let's watch this video first. Choose a suitable song for the service. Let's do that. So I think the password would be brooms to get in. Yes, so that works, that's good. Let's close a few of these tabs just so it's not as busy. And this is what we're directed to. This is one of the hardest puzzles in the game. So let's unpack what's going on here. First of all, in the background, it's a photo of our chapel. On the left and right sides here, there's more of this like ancient Greek text. Still don't know what that means. Then in the center here, we're given a grid of hymn book numbers, and behind it is the same layout of the Circle 1964 Instagram. We know it's the Instagram because this post in the middle here kind of orients us, so we know that the other ones are on the Instagram. So it has something to do with the Instagram, something to do with hymn numbers, and something to do with this Greek text. This puzzle isn't very well explained, but the answer is embedded within it, so let me just tell you how to do it. Essentially, we have all these different hymn book numbers, and this Greek text is actually the translated name of one of these hymns. So you have to look up online what all of these hymns are, and you realize that the one you're looking for is number 339. If you go to that post on the Instagram, it'll give you the answer, but it only will tell you once you go to this next section here called Science. So let's first watch the video.
Let's go check out a grade 9 science class.
Hello, Harrison.
Hi, I'd like to introduce Miss Gerb.
Hello. This is grade 9 science. In grade 9 science, we study 4 different units. Thank you, gentlemen. You can have a seat. We study ecology, an introduction to chemistry, electricity, and we're just finishing off with astronomy. So we're looking at the origins of the universe.
But yeah, then it reads the following. It says, Science. As you have learned from this memory, science unfolds the mysteries of the universe, and it is with science that the current challenges will be overcome. This situation is not without precedent. An infection was reported to have beset the college in the last millennium. However, time has eroded our precious knowledge of the past and the nature of the pathology. Enter the lab to conduct an experiment to retrieve the lost knowledge and formulate a remedy. Only tell us where we might harvest sunbeams to pass. That's the key. So you have to go back to the Instagram, and it says on one of those drawings in that post, sunbeams are like harvested from cucumbers or something. So cucumbers is the answer to get into the lab. Cucumbers. Yes. Okay, so we're in. That works out. Table. Okay, so it says science fair. We're given the layout of like the periodic table of elements. And then we've got a few things here that should be noted. So number 89 on the periodic table is like colored in, so is number 58, and number 16 as well with the number 2, so I guess there's 2 of that. It's kind of a similar riddle to that massive one with the dragon. You're supposed to just like figure out what these elements are and then kind of put them in a word together. So if you click on this hyperlink here, the word would be access is the answer. Bear with me here, we're almost done. We only got a few puzzles left. So we're given this alchemical table of elements. Some of these elements are highlighted in red for some reason. And it says actually on the page, look outside to get inside. So if you do that, you'll see that on the tarmac, this is a newer updated version of Google Earth, so it's not the same as it was before. Right now in chalk on the tarmac, there is like these little 4 square arenas right here. But before on the tarmac, it had this pattern, this red pattern was actually written in chalk on the ground. Then this little icon right here is an intersection point, so you were supposed to look for the intersection point between the 2 things. And that actually, on the alchemical table of elements, this intersection point conveniently gets you to the element called alum, which I think would be aluminum, but like alum is just funny because, alumni and all that. Then it's asking for a password, so when you find that intersection point, the password is right here, it's remedy. Yes, okay, we're good. So it'll redirect us. That was a cool puzzle. Unfortunately, I can't just like show you it in its current form because Google Earth doesn't go back to different dates. This is just the most updated version of the school. But anyway, we're given this photo here, and it says Science Fair 79. For this measure, you will endeavor to draw a straight line. Start at the tip of the nose of the boy in the Don Mills jacket, so right here. Connect the tip of his nose to the extended tongue of the possessed boy with his eyes rolled back on the lower left. So that'd be right here, this guy. Extend the line along to the same trajectory to the bottom of the page until it lands on the lucky hand of he who holds the ultimate prize. So there's a boy here, it's hyperlinked, and there's money in his hand. Once you know his name, you too may share in his spoils. So how you solve this, you go to the 1979 yearbook, you figure out who this kid is and his last name. Takes you to this final document here that's called the elixir. Now that you have distilled the core element, it is time to finalize the experiment. To eradicate this pernicious infestation, we must turn to the benchmark by which we measure the competing forces of the inner sanctum. You will know you are close by the multitude of points that will materialize when you arrive at the correct formulation. However, the precise point of convergence, as marked in the volume, coincides with the threshold at which H2O boils. Only then will you be able to identify the twin strands of the infection and achieve the complete potential of the restorative elixir. So, how do you solve this? Well, you go to the 1979 yearbook, page 100, because that's where water boils, is at 100 degrees, and you read through it a little bit. Turns out the twin strands of this infection are apathy and ennui, so you input that on the gate, and just like that, you're done the Circle 1964, it's over, and the winners were announced. Turns out that ultimate prize that they were hoping for is actually one of these hoodies. I think they're really comfortable, they're really cool, and it also doesn't really look like anything school-related, so I think it's a nice little gift that they can actually wear outside of class. Time flies. Just like that, the circle is over. That's all the puzzles, so thank you so much for listening to that. I had a lot of fun showing you guys this stuff. There's a few things I want to talk about before the video's over. Let's do that right now. Alright, so that is the walkthrough of the game. If you're at this point in the video, thank you so much for sticking around. That means you care about this as much as I do, which is incredible, so again, thank you. But yeah, before we end the video though, I just want to answer a few common misconceptions and unanswered questions about both the game and its development. There are quite a few actually, so I'm just going to dive right into it right here, right now. Was the game for a class? No. In fact, it was an extracurricular opportunity. Anybody in the high school, teachers or students, could have participated. All of the trials were scheduled to drop Friday nights, Saturday nights as well, so people had ample time to finish it. Not sure if there's more to say on that one. Let's move on. How many people played it? This is a funny question, because when we first sent out the survey, we thought, I don't know, 20, 30 people might join. It is an online environment. People aren't as interested, I thought at least. We checked the data from the survey, and turns out 120 kids signed up for the game, and we knew right then and there this experience had to be worthwhile. How much time did you spend on it? So if I wasn't occupied with online school, I was working on the Circle. When I say I was working on it for a month straight, I mean that. All four of us would get on these daily Zoom calls, we would bounce ideas off of each other, workshop puzzles, etc. Yeah, the four of us were exhausted by the end. Enough said. Was your identity ever compromised as game developers? No. Since the game's launch, people had speculations that Darvazi was involved. After all, this just screams Darvazi. But no, in fact, every time he was asked about it, he just openly denied it. Same thing with us. If we were ever asked about it, we would just say, no, we're playing the game. So yeah, as far as everyone else was concerned, we were actually playing it. When the game had concluded, a bunch of my friends came up to me and said, oh, I knew it was you the whole time. No, you didn't. I was on your team. What are you talking about? But yeah, that's a fun question. Let's move on. Do you have a favorite moment from the game? I think I'll answer this in two parts. So first off, I'd say my favorite contributions to the game were that demonic choir puzzle as well as the Circle Instagram accounts. I just think those two showcase the creativity and atmosphere of the Circle the best. Then for part two of that question, I'd say my favorite moments during the game happened as a result of espionage and backstabbing between the different players. Actually, I'll give you an example of that. So there was two students, Student A and Student B, I guess we can call them. So we're just working on the game one day. Student A sends us an email that says, confidential, I have reason to suspect Student B is cheating, which on its own is interesting enough. So we look at that email, there's a bunch of screenshots in it of this text conversation where Student B openly admits to cheating, and then like 15 minutes later we get an email from Student B that says, confidential, I have reason to suspect Student A is cheating. Uh-oh. And sure enough, we check this email and it's the same text conversation, but Student B had changed it so that Student A is the one that admits to cheating. So then the four of us, instead of working on the game, which we desperately needed to do, we were cross-referencing these two text conversations to figure out who actually cheated. It was insane. I'm a bit confused. What was the Instagram account? So the Circle 1964 on Instagram, it's public, you can check it out if you want to. It served very little purpose in-game, but in terms of the world-building aspect of it, it did a lot of the heavy lifting. So the account is comprised of these really nicely arranged cryptic drawings, yearbook photos, letters, etc. So I spent a long time diving through these archives, because ultimately the purpose of it was I wanted to build the atmosphere of the game, sure, but I wanted kids as well to just know that this cool stuff is in the yearbooks and that they can look themselves. Is an Instagram account like that necessary necessary for any of these games? Absolutely not. Was it just a cool thing I did? Yeah. Honestly, I'm super proud of the arrangement and the vibe of it. I suggest you go check it out if you're at all interested. Were there any scrapped puzzles? Yeah, quite a lot, actually. I'm serious when I say if we had the time and energy to make a Circle 1964 DLC or even a full-on sequel, we definitely could have. Each puzzle had undergone this massive transformation to become what it was in the final game. For example, that audio walk puzzle from the second trial, there was a whole series of events where you were going to go into a video store and rent out a movie that had to do with the rest of it. There was another puzzle woven into that where you had to spell out words using musical notes on sheet music. There's a lot of cool ideas that we had that we just couldn't put in the game for one reason or another. Maybe some time down the line we can work on that, but for now they're just kind of left in the void. Would you ever make a sequel? Maybe, and here's why. So Dr. Arvazi and I had continued this Circle 1964 online escape room format for a different school, this time McGill University out in Quebec. So Darvazi directed and I did videography for 2 different games, one called Raising Spirits and one called Quiz That So. They're both online and public. You're welcome to play them at any time. Maybe I'll link them down in the description so you can check it out if you want to. It's very different than the Circle. You can play at your own pace. It's pretty cool. To me though, I think the Circle 1964 should really only exist in the moment that it was played. You know, maybe in 5 to 10 years from now, when a new batch of high schoolers are there and everybody's kind of forgotten about the Circle, maybe I'd go back to the school and pitch it again, but for now, I think it's best left as just a memory. Alright, I think I've covered basically all of it. That, my friends, is the Circle 1964. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feedback, let me know down below. I really want to have a conversation about this, because I just think it's something that is so unique. It's a product of COVID. This is one of the good things that came out of COVID, and I'd just love to hear your thoughts about it. So yeah, thanks for watching. I don't even know what else to say. It's been such a long video. Thanks for sticking around, and as always, have a good one. Take care.
Greetings, Georgian. The mystery is impenetrable.
And it must always be preserved. Are you on the device? The one that doesn't move?
Yes, I would never risk exposure. I'm making contact from the unmoved mover.
Good. So what is the motive for your call?
Another cycle draws to a close.
And did they learn to see? Did the serpent shed its scales?
Indeed. Initiates were rendered and admitted.
What did they discover to be the cause?
Apathy and ennui.
Can it be cured?
We are working on designing an experience that might provide some balm, but a total cure remains elusive. Ouroboros will inform the design.
Proceed with our support and return when it is complete. In the meantime, we will inscribe the new initiates in the order of ranks.